Eric Bieniemy leaving the Kansas City Chiefs. And this weekend's the AFC, in my opinion, Ike. But when I first saw this, it was like, why would he want to leave Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and company? And then you do some more research, and it's like, wait a second now. He wasn't even calling the plays in Kansas City. That was left to Andy Reid as the offensive coordinator for the last 6 seasons. They've had tremendous success in Kansas City. But he comes in and takes over in Washington. The last 6 years, the Commanders have failed to finish with an offense ranked in the top 15 in either points or yards during that time span. He'll get his opportunity to call plays. Potentially, this leads to a head coaching position. To me, it's not, okay, I want to leave Patrick Mahomes to coach Taylor Heineke. It's not as simple as that, but it's for the opportunity to eventually position himself to be a head coach because for whatever reason, he's been passed up time and time and time again. And before I've turned the floor over to you, I sent this to you in advance of the show. During Super Bowl 57, it was Coach Bieniemy who noticed the coverage tendencies to where the Chiefs had 2 easy touchdowns to both Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, where they faked the jet motion sweep. It was Eric Bieniemy was the one who noticed that, and the Chiefs had 2 wide open touchdowns in the Super Bowl. So clearly he has an eye for this, and if he even has 2/3 to 3/4 of the success that he had in Kansas City, this will be a good hire for the Washington Commanders, Ike.
First of all, I think it's a lot of false narrative that Coach Eric Bieniemy wasn't calling some of the plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Coach Eric Bieniemy had a lot of input on making those calls.
Full-time, Mike. I'm with you there, but I'm saying to where it's like I hear you. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But you get a lot of other coaches who get opportunities that not even close to looking at Coach Eric Bieniemy resume that's getting these head coaching jobs. You look at a lot of other coaches who don't have the success, the input. You see Patrick Mahomes, not only is he talking to Coach Andy Reid, but when they go down and sitting on the bench, who has that iPad or that Microsoft board talking with Patrick Mahomes is Coach Eric Bieniemy. Coach Eric Bieniemy, and I've been knowing Coach Eric Bieniemy for at least 12 years, just off of him playing and coaching because of MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew. Coach Eric Bieniemy, he's another brilliant mind when it comes down to understanding what defense is doing, attacking defensive soft spots, and getting the game plan ready. So you can only imagine how much of a Robin he was to Coach Andy Reid when it came down to making those calls. Coach Andy Reid have been to a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, but Coach Andy Reid haven't won. And I think a lot of that has to do with the input of Coach Eric Bieniemy and understanding exactly how to attack coverages. I got to give a lot of praise to Coach Andy Reid. I think Coach Andy Reid kind of put some of his knowledge aside and soaked in some of Coach Eric Bieniemy's knowledge because Coach Eric Bieniemy might look at attacking the defense different ways. You just never know. But Coach Eric Bieniemy, man, I think the time is right. The time have came. We talked about Coach Eric Bieniemy on the show numerous of times on why he haven't had a head coaching job. This time might put him more in the forefront than what he was with Kansas City Chiefs. But Coach EB, man, I'm just happy for him. I think it's been a long time coming. We talked about, and I'll be the first to say this. We've talked about guys who have major impacts, and we said, man, what the Kansas City Chiefs going to do when they lose Cheetah? Well, I think I want to see my personal opinion now on the flip side, what Kansas City Chiefs going to do when they lose Eric Bieniemy. So time will tell. We shall see how much of an impact he was dealing with the loss or the value on coming up with some of these game plans against other teams' defenses. So we talked a lot of smack. Let's see how much smack we'll talk. The man behind the scenes, so saying Coach Eric Bieniemy, and he has the opportunity to prove to us in the football world, going with the Washington Commanders. I told y'all. So we shall see what the Washington Commanders do, because they did make the playoffs 2 years ago with the Taylor Heineke, so say. So it just goes on. We'll see what they get in the draft. We'll see what they do in the offseason, Mark. But my personal opinion, this is a major, take players out of it, this is a major hit to the Kansas City Chiefs and that offense and that organization.
Ike, you're in my brain, and that's a dangerous place to be. How the Chiefs fill the void is something that I wanted to discuss next, because Matt Nagy, the former Bears head coach, he had been an assistant long time under Andy Reid in the Chiefs organization. I would assume he's next in line, but you're losing Bieniemy. And I look at it from this standpoint. I got a lot of friends in Kansas City. I'm a University of Missouri grad. A lot of friends in Kansas City that are devastated by this news with Eric Bieniemy leaving, because they're genuinely concerned. Then I look to see, okay, what does he mean to the players, the key players in that locker room? Patrick Mahomes loves him. Tyreek Hill is no longer there, so he has no reason to lie. They have nothing but praises to say about Eric Bieniemy. And now he's not. Now he's in Washington. Now he's not going to be in Kansas City. Is there going to be a drop-off? We know how difficult it is to repeat as Super Bowl champions. It hasn't been done since 03-04 with the Patriots. And you have to wonder, as Mahomes gets older and you've got to pay him $500 million as part of his contract, Travis Kelce's still doing his thing, but they don't have that dynamic, explosive playmaker that they had with the Tyreek Hill. And now they lose one of their play callers, a brilliant genius offensive mind, Ike. And those 2 touchdowns is something we talked about immediately after the Super Bowl. They were 2 absolutely critical plays. And yes, you credit the players for the execution, Ike, but he saw something that opened up easy touchdowns when the windows are tighter in the goal line. It's harder to complete passes. You always tell me, like, you can't give up a blade of grass anywhere on the field, but specifically in the red zone, because you're playing with the shortened field. And the Chiefs were able to make it look easy. And one other point, too, we've said this, Ike, and I would encourage any offensive coordinators or offensive minds in this league. If you want to get better, look at what the Chiefs do in terms of their red zone execution. I feel like we were saying it all season long this past season. Eric Bieniemy, whether he's calling the plays full-time or not, is certainly a key contributor to that. And so there's going to be a huge void there in Kansas City now.
Yeah, Mark, when you want to talk about Eric Bieniemy, EB, let's go to running backs. Coach Eric Bieniemy played running back his whole life. Going to Rutgers, drafting a late round draft pick, and how you say his name?
Pacheco.
Getting Pacheco in a later draft. Him wind up being a featured back. Coach Eric Bieniemy saying draft these red flag players, I got them. Because a lot of these players for the Kansas City Chiefs coming out either had red flags or they're acquired guys. Kadarius Toney, red flag. So how you think Coach Andy Reid felt like, you know what, I got a coach on staff, he can relate to him. He can talk to him. He can make my job a little bit easier. Because you do, to get to what Kansas City Chiefs has been the past 5-6 years, AFC Championship, Super Bowls, you got to have guys with red flags. If you look at the majority of the Hall of Famers, most of them had red flags coming out of college, because you need a lot of alphas on the football field, because it's organized violence. That's all football is. And them guys are wired a little bit different. It's one thing that they hate, and they hate to lose, whether it's in practice, whether it's playing cards, whether it's playing the PlayStation, whether it's on the field competing. When you get a few red flag guys, and I'm not saying your whole team got to be a bunch of red flag guys, but usually your red flag guys, and I'm just going off of my personal experience, they wired a little bit different, bro. All the way wired.
Ike, let me piggyback off this too with the Kadarius Toney acquisition, right? And you're saying, wait a second, well, he's a first rounder. How is he a red flag guy? Point blank period. He didn't score a touchdown when he was a member of the Giants. So how do you maximize his ability, someone who is talented enough to get drafted in the first round? And how can you salvage him? How can you get the most out of him as a player? How can you get him playing at his highest level? That's what we're talking about here.
Well, I'm also talking about coming out of college.
Yeah.
Like Travis Kelce coming out of college.
Yep.
Travis Kelce had a few red flags. Tyreek Hill coming out of college had a few red flags. Kadarius Toney coming out of college had a few red flags. Okay, I got somebody on staff who these guys can relate to and talk to, and that's Coach Eric Bieniemy. So what I'm saying, yes, I'm saying from a player standpoint, you lose some all-pro good players, but from a coaching staff standpoint, and from a guy whose value was real high in that organization, we shall see from this point on how KC would do, not only from the play calling, but guys who did have red flags, and you had a coach on that coaching staff who them guys can't relate to. I think we already talked about at the beginning of our show the biggest thing in the offseason, and it's Coach Eric Bieniemy leaving the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
So I think that's the biggest offseason move, in my personal opinion. So I would like to see what the Kansas City Chiefs do in 2023 without Coach Eric Bieniemy. In my mind, I think he's the biggest transaction. I know we're talking about Lamar. I know we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. It's highly good to talk about quarterbacks in the offseason. But if the Ravens don't sign Lamar, then the Ravens, I don't understand why if they don't. Aaron Rodgers, he been tickling us for the last couple of years on retiring, not retiring, what he feel like he needs on the team. So I'm just kind of like exhausted from talking about Aaron Rodgers on how he acts in the off season and how he feels. He knows he's in a position of power, so I can't knock him from that standpoint. But they haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2009. So it's going on 2023. We're in 2023 right now. So Aaron Rodgers, regardless on what he thinks, on how he feels, he know he's going to the Hall of Fame. It's just do the man want another Super Bowl or not. So that's how fast football passes you by. They beat us in 2008-09 season, and they haven't been back since. It's 2023. That's a long time ago. So for me, it's Eric Bieniemy. I would like to see. I said nothing about when they lost Cheetah. I wasn't worried because I knew they had Eric Bieniemy. I knew Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, that duo, they'll figure something out. So, and they did. They wound up winning another one. But it's going to be Coach Eric Bieniemy. I think Coach Eric Bieniemy is the biggest transaction in 2023 football world.
Ike, that comes from a tremendous amount of insight. I am very surprised to hear you say that.